Hello, I'm Lee Ganly. I'm Acora's CIO. I've been with Acora for nearly 20 years. I've seen an awful lot of change through that. I'm responsible for internal IT, all of the tools that we use. And as we've grown and developed, I think that's a great bedrock and foundation for pressures on the CIO for AI.
Hi, Lee, you know me well, but for those that don't, I'm Peter G. I'm responsible for our application transformation and data practice here at Acora. Been with the company almost 2 years now. My background is born in data, really. So I've lived through the revolution that is data, from connecting data to now enabling data to give us a much richer insight into what we do as businesses and how we make that work. And I've been lucky enough to work on some really transformational projects, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But it's nice to see you this morning, and I'm looking forward to sharing our insights.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so where I'd like to start a little bit further back, Lee. We talked about this, we talked about it quite frankly, really. Gen AI is a really big thing. We understand it. Everybody's talking about it, and everybody's seeing it, yeah? So we're all out there. But I think for me, it's understanding that difference between Gen AI as a topic and some of the enablers such as machine learning, and really trying to break that down, because everybody's very excited about what AI can do, but understanding the difference between AI and something like machine learning, I think is important, because they play a very different role. So how do you see that?
Yeah, very much. Look, machine learning has been around for a really long time. Gen AI, we know, has been kind of in business parlance. It's in mainstream media. It's the thing that people are really connected with. But I do think that the advances in hardware and the advances in software have just given us that very different platform than we've ever had. I think the capabilities are accelerating hugely. Mm-hmm. I think where we're seeing investment and where you see that appearing in the mainstream press is absolutely where people are putting their confidence in. They're investing in the companies that are investing their cash in innovation and R&D in and around AI. But that's not to say that people haven't been doing it for a really long time. Machine learning, as we know, has been around for a very long time. It's just Gen AI has definitely got a march, and it's definitely the modern cousin.
Yeah, and it's that human side I think they've introduced, because as you said, I see a lot of people using machine learning in technologies around algorithms for finance, for example. They've been using it for years to perfect transactions and deals, actually bringing a human element to it through Gen AI, saying, let's see how we can replicate what human decision-making looks like using multiple inputs. That's a real change. I see a real change in that, and that's brought it to everybody's attention.
Well, they've democratized it by the fact they made it available. They made it freely available. I know you have got some great stats about the number of subscribed users, and I think ChatGPT was certainly one of those Gen AI models that was, really, really quickly adopted. Mm-hmm. We know it accelerated hugely. And then people are starting to, it's combining at the same time as content creators on YouTube. So all of that stuff around getting information out about how you can get the benefits out of it, how you can create money out of it at a branch level, and then down at kind of a leaf end where people can interface with it, has meant they're bringing that expectation into the workplace as well. So, a lot of people are bringing their own versions of ChatGPT or an AI model in to help them get better at their job, because they've learnt it themselves.
I'd like to talk about that a bit later. I think there's this adoption, which is top-down, bottom-up sort of approach, and you see this all the time. I think I'm sort of interested to think, do you think it's overhyped?
I think the stock market would definitely say it's overhyped. Some of the value of companies are based on future earnings, and we saw it with the dot-com bubble. I was part of that, working at Hewlett-Packard at the time. A load of stuff around the internet revolution, and it was all about massive multiples on what their future earnings were going to be while people were trying to work out what they did with it. And I think the same is, you're seeing a very similar track. People are starting to create tracker funds that are thematic, and, they're going around AI. Some people are starting to double down on semiconductors, kind of an enabler for AI. But the growth in those has been massive. So there's not a lot of value in investing in it from an investor perspective, but that does mean there's a huge amount of money swilling around inside those businesses to be able to double down on the investment. So we're going to get great creative, but I think the market does seem a bit hyped at the moment.
It does. And I love that analogy with .com, actually. If you do think about it, our tech industry is full of those anticipation of this is going to revolutionize it.
Future value.
Massively overestimate that in the initial case, and then we underestimate the long-term impact. So they take the .com and that famous case of, boo, boo, boom and bust, and then come back as boo-hoo. So actually that long-term adoption, we massively underestimate the impact, and we all embrace that way that works now. And I lived through that too, actually. That was an interesting phase where there was investment and opportunity, but those that stuck with it were the ones that were successful long-term. And I feel that's the same now. Actually, if we start to look further forward and it's not this revolution, it's like a transformation we'll all go on. I think we'll all come out the other side in a better place, but it's not going to happen overnight.
And I think, look, the Magnificent Seven stocks that include Microsoft, that include NVIDIA, they're already big companies, and they just happen to have added this as an accelerant. So I do think there's a much stronger bedrock for an awful lot of those organizations as well to build on.
Yeah. Do you see any others? I mean, it's hard. It's a difficult question, really. But I always think, Amazon, was created in the last 15 years. That there's going to be some competitors arrive in the marketplace that we don't know. And we talk about, what that could look like. And I think the changing business dynamic, take OpenAI, for example, it's at the forefront of all our thinking now. But even just 5 years ago, we wouldn't have considered that as an influential, open product.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of established players are starting to develop a capability, which is like a latent capability. They probably know how their process or their software enables that process. But now to think about AI, so we're going to get a lot of that. And that's going to mean that's going to be introduced into a core app that you're already using, not necessarily having to bust that data out or connect another application and another platform. So I think we're going to start to see that wave of innovation. And especially around people start to then, as we know with all these companies, they start to break out and clever minds then do their own thing. So we're going to get surprised by, some great startups that are going to be out there. It's just whether you've got the confidence in them and you're going to build your own practice around, or your own business around somebody that is quite new.
Maybe we'll talk about that a bit later, because I've seen, we do a fair bit of work in the legal sector, and there are products like Harvey now which are starting to come into this place, but I've seen a great deal of hype around it, but not a great deal of adoption, and equally other organizations looking at the impact of what I could like. We'll get back to that later, a bit on business strategy, but I think where we started this was that, I think AI, machine learning, there's so much underneath it. If you look at, it actually looks like it's not actually ChatGPT. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff under there, which is about connecting data, collecting data, cleaning data, and moving through those phases, analyzing it, presenting it. And there's tons of stuff that we need to consider to be able to bring it to life. So that knowledge and understanding, do you think people have, are you seeing it within our own business that people go, okay, AI is just this ChatGPT, or is there a whole bed underneath that goes, people need to understand more about it?
I think people are learning as they go. And I think I've used the word democratize, but you are democratizing it. You're putting those tools in their hands, but you've got to coordinate and train them and enable them. And I know we're going to concentrate a bit more on enablement a bit later, but it's definitely something that is going to build on some solid foundations. And then they're going to start to think about the art of the possible. And I think that's the magic, because it's a change in the way they think. It's not just doing the same thing slightly more efficiently. You kind of reimagine that process. And that's where you're going to unlock that creativity, which is, I think that's the power of it. And then people can start to apply that knowledge that they will learn in something like a generative AI in something around, what can I ask the model? Because if I can get that out, what can I ask the model? What do I need to do to my data and the data points to be able to get a good response that I can trust?
And I think that's interesting, because that awareness is already there. When you bring a transformation to an organization, people talk about adoption. We're not talking about adoption, really. We're talking about use cases now, because it's there. It's in our business today. You talk about the use of ChatGPT. People use it all the time in our business. Right. So,
and ChatGPT came before Copilot as well. So people were already bringing their own ChatGPT and realizing they could augment what they did. And it was an augmentation as well. So it was just maybe a starter that they could build on. It might be a very open question. It might be some research. It might be, but then combine that with something that can then go and get live data from the internet rather than a historically aging model. But they're already building the concept of doing it and then doing their own searching for those additional tools that they can go and find.
Touched upon it a little bit before about this bottom-up, top-down. Speak to a lot of organizations that are looking at AI strategy and going, okay, what does it mean to our business? But already we've talked about people are using this, okay, every day. All right. So absolutely, one of the things that people come into is risk. Okay. As soon as you bump into this, it's looking at those use cases at the bottom of the business going, well, I can help me do my job better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I talked to some of our people developing content. It's great. As you said, that iterative process that something like ChatGPT or Gemini give you is the ability to go and reiterate very, very quickly to create some good quality content. So it speeds up what they do. Okay, so the first instinct is, well, where does that information come from? So then you start to upload your own information to these and go, can you make something of this? Mm-hmm. So the risk and compliance come down on it, say, we're not having it.
Yeah.
There's no way we're having our information in a public space, so we'll stop it right now. Is that a conflict you see as well? I mean, the bottom-up approach has its challenges, even though we're all enjoying the fact that everybody's aware of it and trying to use it.
Yeah.
But it's got some challenges.
I'm Acora's data protection officer, so absolutely. We also, we're enabling innovation that is changing underneath our feet. So yeah, knowing what good looks like from a privacy and security perspective is just paramount. Mm-hmm. You need to write a policy. We've had to write a policy on how we use it, how we control it.
Yeah.
There's got to be something that you can technically control. Mm-hmm. Great, but I don't think those technical controls necessarily exist yet.
Right.
And there's some policy-based controls, which are just organizational things I write down that you are, telling me that you're going to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's not a great, how much of it can you switch on, switch off?
Yeah.
Who do I give that capability? Yeah. Who do I take that capability? At the moment, it's pretty open.
Mm-hmm.
So then I think we'll probably mature into being able to, have an influence as a data privacy, protector that controls what those guys can do with it. Yeah. I think Microsoft are going to do something around the data privacy space, being able to label data.
Right.
But that's one tool, one platform. That's not necessarily all of them.
So this strays into the next sort of topic area I wanted to get your views on, really, which is, I call it the haves and have-nots. Because you talked about Microsoft Copilot and almost bringing that privacy element to your business and sharing the large language models that have been developed outside your business, but allowing you to leverage those inside your own business alongside your own data.
Yeah.
Okay, but that's very much a have.
Yeah.
Okay, the people that have the resources, have the data, have the people, have the money to be able to do those, is that, how that differentiates to the have-nots that could have a real impact. And I'm not quite sure what that balance looks like at the moment, the haves and the have-nots, and the impact it has on the businesses that are going to adopt AI faster. Are they going to be the best businesses that adopt it? I don't know how that plays out.
I think as a knowledge worker, you can see how it benefits you as an individual. But as a guy that owns an IT budget, which I do, this has come pretty quick. So yeah, you haven't necessarily baked in how big an investment I need to make. So I'm making this by justifying the time it saves me, how much better it makes my people, how much more productive. If that's 1,000 people with something like a Copilot subscription, that's nearly £300,000 just hard cost in software. So actually combine then the adoption, be that training, be that enablement, all of those sorts of things, that's easily going to be the same again.
Yeah.
So then how am I going to pay for that? Is there efficiencies to be gained? How am I measuring those efficiencies? Am I going to be, not recruiting people, or am I going to be, carving out headcount? They're big cultural impacting things. You say easily, but how am I going to justify the cost of doing that? How am I going to rewrite my business processes? So we're an ISO shop. So, how am I going to re-engineer all of those? Because they now have a new step in, which is the use of AI. So then if I've got that, then each one of those processes that was written down that people adhere to, that we've been validated against, now needs to be updated to say, hey, we use AI for this part of that business process.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of things there, which interest me. The leading message that Microsoft are running with, do more with less.
Yeah.
Okay, so you look at that and then try and apply that to a Copilot instance that you're talking about there, and that is, the impact that it has on the business and the opportunity it brings for people too. Okay, because you're talking about how we can use this. Now, if you look at that journey you were talking about, there's a pyramid, of course there is, and it's well versed in terms of moving from data to information to knowledge to wisdom, and everybody understands that hierarchy.
Yeah,
we've been on that data to information, digital transformation. We're now in the information to knowledge transformation through this process, and I think the learning opportunity for people and our teams, and I'm sure you're looking at that going, even just something like Copilot isn't trying to change you out. Yeah, but we're looking at our business process, and everybody can join in actually and go, we can be better, we can do more for less, and we can scale. And I think that's an opportunity, I think, not just for the business, but for people as well.
Well, it's not just specific to their job, it's specific to their work habits, because we've all got the common work habits. So we're all in meetings. So how do I get enough? And how much do they cost? The burn rate in a meeting, very expensive people. How do I get that optimized? Can I ask my generative AI to suggest an agenda to achieve this objective? If they can then check me as I'm going through that meeting to make sure that I'm on track and I'm going to cover all the points I need. I had something I think new pop up the other day to say, hey, you've got 10 minutes remaining in your meeting. Do you want Copilot to summarize where you are? That could have been a completely wasted meeting.
Did you press yes?
I did, yeah.
And was it good? Was it good?
It didn't tell me off too badly.
Right.
But it does allow you to then pause, think, and then use those last 10 minutes to summarize the actions that we've got, and then make sure that we've got an action and an owner and all those things. And imagine that then pushing into a project plan dynamically. That's not there yet, by the way. Pushing into a project plan and then measuring where that project is and anything that's been said that could impact the critical path, and it replotting that during the meeting that you're having. That's the future of just one of the uses for it. Like the fact that actually we're all being recorded in a Microsoft Teams meeting. It transcribes as it goes. It looks at the content. It looks at anything you upload, and it looks at a plan that you've got and be able to do all of that. So that's incredibly powerful. Where it's already, you can already see where that's going.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm pretty excited about it.
And that's that. It's really interesting what you're talking about. It's a use case straight away. So you identify a use case and go, I could use my time. This is back to the 100 things 1% makes 100% improvement.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny thing. Okay, and I think. I'm going to just stray off topic a little bit, just for indulgence, because you triggered my thoughts into. I was talking to an organisation about Gen AI, and the whole Gen AI is an assembly of services such as large language models, but it's taking input from visuals and other information. So when you combine all this, you can make human decisions. So the story he was telling me is they're an organisation that print train tickets.
I didn't even know that was still a thing, by the way.
I got told off for my ticket the other day. Anyway, so you get a train ticket, and you can do that obviously digitally now, and you can produce that. This person was talking about, it isn't the ticket, it's the journey. Right? You're not buying a ticket to get on the train. What you're buying is a journey. All right, so let's understand what that journey looks like and where you're going. So they said with AI, you can now augment that with future information. So when you arrive in London, we know it's raining.
Yeah.
Okay, we also know that the taxis are busy, so she'll organise you an Uber right now.
Yeah.
So you're getting on the train and it pings you and says, would you like an Uber? Because you're going to get to London, there's going to be, chaos, and I can organise that for you. So this whole bringing this information together gives us a better process overall and a better customer experience. So whilst that's appropriate in all business contexts, it is in our own lives as well. And I'm really bad at this, right? I think anybody that doesn't really understand AI or what its capability is, we're already consuming it. I have Netflix, it tells me what I think I want to watch.
Yeah.
AI.
It's prioritizing based on preference.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I fought it and I went, why am I fighting this? It's actually helping me, and I think it's just overcoming those generational things as well.
I think so, yeah. Look, we've all gone into a YouTube spiral when we've got a rainy day outside, haven't we? The content it serves is very intentional. Yeah. And it does, guess what? The algorithms are absolutely in line with what you want right at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. So, and for me, that I know I strayed off topic a little bit, but you're bringing it back to the business, and what we're talking about is use cases. So everybody I talk to go, okay, you've got to bring this to life, right? So you look at AI strategy, and if you go into AI strategy, the company has certain business ambitions. We want to give a better user experience. We want to be more effective. We want to grow our business faster. We want to open up new channels. If we understand what those strategies are, we can develop tiny use cases But if you don't have the AI strategy, you can't have the use cases that replicate it. And I think that's a big gap for us at the moment. Who's going to do that? I've seen the ascent of a chief digital officer. Okay, that's been fairly recent, but understanding what the foundation stones looks like. We're going forward now, I think.
Yeah.
Even in our business, I think, is that your role now?
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly a part of my role.
Right.
There's going to be an awful lot of people that I'm going to need to bring along to the journey because they manage and they're subject matter experts for their process. There's going to be those core business things that we can definitely give advice on, but and you're giving them the tools and you're giving them the enablement, but they're going to need to meet you on that journey. They're going to need to do the thinking in their own part of the business, see how it can benefit. You're going to give them the goal to say, how do you think it could? And you're going to give them some techniques, and that's it. You're probably giving them techniques, and then they need to refine them, make sure they land inside their business, change their processes, and look for those opportunities, but you're providing the foundation. And then what you're really trying to do, what I'm trying to do, is just get that leadership in each of those areas to then be able to talk to each other. Because you can't have pockets and islands of brilliance, can you? They are just islands.
Well, I was
be able to make that.
I was going to catch you on that, to test you on it. How do you maintain visibility of all that? How do you know it's even going on? In your role, you're looking at it going, have AI as a topic to help our business move forward, and we're developing our AI strategy. Yeah. How do you know you've not got some shadow AI going on somewhere?
Well, it's really difficult. Yeah, I mean, shadow AI, we've definitely had it. We definitely have still got it. Yeah, and I think any CIO that sits here that tells you they've got 100% control over their shadow IT is probably lying to you. They're web-based services. I can see it going via my web filtering tools. Am I going to stop it? No, but I've got to replace it with something that's better. Yeah, that's what you're going to have to do, because you just need to be able to develop a strategy that is better than what people are going to bring out of their commercial, their non-commercial lives, out of their social lives.
And again, I don't know if it's been any different any other time. As long as you have a vision and a strategy and you share that with the business, they can at least align and go, well, I think what I'm doing aligns with that.
Yeah.
So perhaps we can, gather that together. And I think that idea, one of the things that frustrates me a lot, I'll be honest with you, is this proliferation of tools. People look at lines of business and they'll solve a problem. So cloud brought this to us.
Yep.
And SaaS brought this to us. I can go and find an HR solution tomorrow.
Yep.
I've got an HR problem. I'm going to buy a solution. I'm going to make it work.
Yep.
Brilliant. Transformational for the HR context of line of business, but doesn't talk to any other platform or any other system in our organization. So it starts to, we have multiple tools doing multiple jobs. And in worst cases, I talk to some, law firms that have, timesheeting systems are very personal. And because of the very nature of their organizations, they look at, the people driving the revenue have the decision-making, the ability to do that. So the success, and they say, I want this timesheeting system. I've seen 10 different timesheeting systems in one business.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just crazy. And actually, I've seen it in other organizations where they're going, well, we need a tool to fix this. And I'm going, you don't. You really don't. If you look at the tools and services, and Microsoft's a really great example for this, is you're probably using 1/10 of its capability.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do we tackle that? It's like you can go and buy a tool to help you demystify the development of pipelines when you're connecting data sets together. Okay, there are loads of tools out there that do it. But we can do it with some code. So why don't we just do it with the tools and services we've got today? I mean, do you see that in our business as well as other businesses? I see hundreds of tools and applications that just need simplifying. That's one of the big things that will bring this to bear, because it's much more obvious to us now.
Yeah, it is all about the quality of tools that you're building and providing. It's about those techniques that you're giving people, and it's about an awareness. And then, learning iteratively with good champions and stakeholders. And that's really powerful for any adoption strategy, for any product. But this, because it's so accessible and it's so widely open and it's just so fast moving, you do need those champs to be able to then start to, feed the machine. And then do find out, have open forums, do find out what people are doing in their, in their non-corporate work lives, do find out the things that they're interested in that have helped them personally, and see if you can harness that, and encourage them clearly not to use them at work if you don't want them to. But it's all about providing a better quality of tool. And I think we're at the point now where actually quite a lot of that early adoption of those kind of consumer-led tools outside is being replaced adequately with enterprise tools.
Okay.
So keeping an eye on it and then being able to move it in that's got to be the power. That's why it's moving so quickly.
Yeah. And I think I do see that in people's day-to-day jobs because, for example, we've looked at that Microsoft strategy and gone, let's have a look at Copilot. Do you find people are doing that now? It'd be interesting that they made a commercial decision to, drop it below the 300 user license base.
They did.
Has that made a significant change that you can say, we can just try this? How many people just go, we'll give it a go? And that it's that approach as opposed to let's have a strategy.
Yeah. I don't know what the decision was about. I don't know what the decision, it was quickly reversed. I think it was a really sensible thing. They were going to do it with Copilot Pro in people's consumer lives. So the people that have got, 365 at home, they've got Copilot Pro. So you can go and buy it, a little bit less than the enterprise version. So it was already the plan to be able to give one user access to it. So I don't quite know what that barrier was. And there's other vendors that are still in the same, it's a minimum number of seats.
Yeah.
I know the OpenAI guys are in that, but I do think it's lowered the barrier to entry. A lot of it is unbudgeted. Anything that's unbudgeted, you need to show value and a return. So getting a small pilot group of people to then provide that feedback, work out how you measure it.
Yeah.
And that's the really powerful thing. Try and work out how you can measure it, because then anything that you're doing multiple times that you can then reduce the time and effort on it, then that's where people will start to see the value and they'll double down on that investment. The haves and have-nots is interesting. Are you going to give every person in your organization the platform or not? And then if you are in meetings where some people have got it, some people haven't, what are those people that haven't got it are going to feel like? So you need to consider that.
Well, like you say, it's very obvious as well, because even when you're using these tools, you could see actually, and you go, okay, what's that?
Yeah.
And it creates that sort of, okay, why have I not got that? And that's again, let's not underestimate the people impact. And we'll talk, I'm sure, more about this later, but that ethical use of AI is a very big agenda item on most organizations. We're all about our people. We're an organization ourselves that are only thriving on the talent that we have. So that talent recruitment, talent retention, talent development's uppermost.
Yeah.
And actually having that ethical lens is quite a complicated space as well, just given what's your top-down view and what's the bottom-up view, because you're gonna run into some what I call constructive tension at some point.
We're going to hire people with the skills that use the tools versus people that haven't got the skills but have the capability. So, the HR learning and development questions that you have on the way in, is that person as good at that job because they use that AI tool to augment what they know? And they're demonstrating that experience. Is that more valuable than somebody that's never used that tool, that just has that foundational knowledge that you could then accelerate further with the use of the tool? So they are going to be some difficult, HR and L&D decisions to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes back to our vision and strategy. If you look at it, and again, I think talked to quite a few businesses about this, and AI as a strategy, an AI leader, I want to call them pioneers, if you like, have got that lens on it. And I'm finding that in that strategy, that journey they're on, if they're thinking about it, they're probably about the same as everybody else in the industry.
Yeah.
What I've heard, and I've listened to lots of other podcasts and read information about this, is that people think they're way behind generally.
Yeah.
And in reality, they're not. Okay. And I cited a case with HSBC where they said, look, we've got 100 use cases for AI. Yeah, but they've got over 200,000 business processes.
Yeah.
So it's tiny.
Yeah.
Okay, but if those 100 provide some context of what you're doing, they're really early on in their whole journey of this, but it's being heroed out. And I think that's something that for us as a business, again, is don't be frightened by that. Actually, don't worry about it, because we're not that far behind when we have this strategy, but you need to have a vision and strategy. If you don't, people will not know what you're trying to do and how that works. And inevitably human nature goes, okay, I'm under threat here. What's not often the case.
Exactly. You're going to need to establish some cultural awareness so that people don't think their roles are, at risk, or it's going to be something that's just there to enable them and augment them and get better.
Yeah.
But it's coming.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's coming. Whether you like it or not, you just got to lean into it as a knowledge worker. It's going to be something that you're almost expected to be using very shortly.
Yeah. And I think we will evolve, and it's again those people that stick with that vision and follow it through. They'll be the winners in all of that. It's the people that the laggards and go, this will never change.
Yeah.
And that's quite a difficult topic for people to digest sometimes. If I look at it again from an industry perspective, I've interviewed a number of people going back to our legal side where it's a practice that earns income from roles that can be automated. Okay, so if you look at paralegal, okay, that's a role right now that AI could apply quite reasonably to.
Yeah.
However, you charge and make quite a lot of money for paralegal services. If those then get marginalized, that marginalizes the business and the profitability, but someone's going to do it.
Well, that paradigm changes. And then if that billing model changes and then all those automations around billing change, how are they going to update their software to accommodate that level of automation or time saving if your primary unit for billing is time?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, at the same time, I don't think it massively changes overnight, but it's the ones that go, I've got a vision and I'm going to follow that vision that will find themselves. And it's often, when I talk to people about the vision they first have, it isn't often the one they come out with in the end, but at least they're acknowledging some change.
Yeah.
I only heard the other day about Uber. In their original vision was a couple of people in Paris, okay, it was conceived, where they looked at it and said, I need to get a taxi, I can't get a taxi, I'll need a limousine service. So it actually started out as a high VIP limousine service. So it wasn't the image of this public service that we all enjoy now. It started up, they did understand latency. So the idea was a demand and a latency. So this vision established, and then it came out to be something else. And I think it's that for me that I always look at organizations going, we're not trying to perfect this. We're just going to do something. We're going to start.
We're on a journey.
So exactly.
Absolutely.
Right. And I think those organizations like ourselves, certainly in MSP space, if you're not embarking on that journey, it's not going to work. Okay. And I think it's about sweating the assets. And I've seen many companies sweat the asset and go, actually, now we're in big trouble now. And I think that's where you've got to invest forward. And I know we're doing some of that.
Yeah. Lots of modeling in different types of use cases. So, I've got the technique or I've got the tool capability to be able to apply to that business change. Okay, well, that type of thing I can do, how many times can I repeat that? Where should I focus on? Am I looking for the things that I do the most or rather the most time consuming? Combine those two things together. I mean, that's magic.
And I think that's where I always look at it. You talked about business process. You've got to understand your business process. If you don't understand your business process, you're going to struggle a bit. And you've got to understand your data. And those sources of data is about connecting them together. So I think those are the things for me that get the basics right and we've got something to build on. And I think that's really important.
Context. Finding the question out that you want to ask and then finding out whether the tool can automate at the asking of that question, the providing of that data. That's how you really unlock it. But having the intellect and having the forethought to know what the question is. And it's probably not the same question you've been asking yourself before because there are some different ways of doing it.
And I always look at that as unintentional outcomes. You've got to also balance off where you might be. So just touching on that subject around risk before, when we talked about data, when you enable some of these AI models, we unintentionally give people access to information they wouldn't otherwise have. So a very simple example, if I were to interrogate through Copilot, what my team's pay grades are and what they get paid, if I've inadvertently left anything in a space which I can see, which has the entire company payroll on it, it can go find it for me. So I can inadvertently get information out that I wouldn't otherwise know how to get to. I could, because I'm clearly allowed to, because these large language models will work within the governance model you give them, but if you've not set the governance at the right appropriate level, it still has access to the information. So it's these unintended outcomes.
And we've had similar things with search. So enterprise search has been something that was a really specialist area for quite a long time, lots of point solutions, and then it became something that was just, very common, putting everything in the cloud. So like a Microsoft Office or a Google Workspace gave quick access. So I think people have started to be aware of that, but you've got to build on that. Because then it's even easier to ask questions. It's even easier to find its way to that information.
Well, it's that iteration that I love. You can ask it a question and another question, and it goes, okay, now I really know. You can really pinpoint that information. So I think it's a lot easier for people to get to that now. And as you say, you've got the people that have been used to using it. So actually there's a skill set in how to drive some of these things too, which is people are learning as well.
That's the techniques, and it's building on those techniques. It's sharing those techniques so that people have got, the same level of information or the same level of knowledge across the organization across different sectors, because there's common business things that should then get them into the art of the possible. Then you can apply them to your specific area.
And I think that explodes as well. When I think about that data layer, we're now including unstructured data. I came across a company the other day, they're using Slack.
Yeah.
And they used Slack in all of their technical support arenas, and they just imported 5 years of Slack data, which is totally unstructured, into this pool, and they were able to interrogate it and just transformed a user operator from a support function to be able to interrogate that whole information. And you look at that use of time, go back to that use case you mentioned. If you have a new joiner in a business and they want to know where your company, how many offices your company has got, you can go into your language model and find that.
Yeah.
You've avoided an interrupt or an email or a stop work or anything like that to be able to do that. But how do you measure those? How do you measure those benefits? It comes back to those use cases and measuring how successful they are. So I find that mind-blowing sometimes, because we're growing the amount of information we've got access to as well as the ability to interrogate it. Yeah, that's quite a shift for me. Lee, I wanted you to just turn a little bit back towards this strategy idea of top-down, bottom-up, the top-down, bottom-up thinking, and how that really works from a integration, iteration point of view. And what I mean by that is when we're embarking on a strategy, you have the vision, everybody can connect that vision together. But when it comes down to actually doing it, the nuts and bolts of it, the engineering aspects of it, how is that working for us? Because we can achieve great things with AI, we can have that vision. But when it comes down to the engine room, actually connecting and integrating these systems can be high budget items, it can be heavy lifting, it can be quite a technology challenge. How are we tackling that kind of stuff? Because I see a lot of companies struggling with that bit.
We're investing, and I think that's the main thing. You invest in the technique, or you invest in, the tool, or the amount of time it takes to create something that you can do once. And then you go and ask the question, which means that you can apply it 100 times. But you go and invest in those so that when you're having the conversations about what the art of the possible is, you're then able to say, well, we've done that thing. How many times can I repeat that? And you get great value out of it.
Right.
And then you build another tool and you ask, the same audience, I've now got this capability. So for me, it's around enabling the capability, which means that it is from the bottom up, because you're looking at what the tech can do almost before you're starting to, allow people to run wildly. And that's what we've been doing to get momentum. And then when people start to think, that does mean that they'll apply those tools, they'll apply those techniques, they'll come with their ideas, and then they're now starting to challenge, because we're on that journey. They're coming and challenging, can I use AI for that?
Right.
And that's great, because that's what we need to do. We need to be able to try and get them to think about the things they've already done and had success. And we're going after the big areas in our business that are either big time-consuming areas or things that we do an awful lot. So I'm trying to automate, get value by being able to, do intelligently those things that are low-value activities that are repeated. So my IT service management platform team, so the developers there, are coming up with those ideas around how do I send the data points that I've got and the unstructured data out, use AI. Now we've got governance concerns over it. So explain to a customer how you're using that data, whether you're passing that out to a large language model externally, is something that you need to think about and design in.
Which we don't do, by the way.
Well, you can actually build out platforms that would allow you to then strip out personally identifiable information and actually bussing that data out before you actually leave your organization was something that we did by design. You go and talk to the vendors and they say, we don't learn, we don't teach our large language model by the data that you give us. But explaining that, I think, was one of those things that we just didn't want to have to then go and explain to a customer's compliance team when we're filling it out. Do you send it? Yes, we do. Who's processing that data? Well, if I've cleaned it before it's gone out, I can genuinely answer that it is, it has nothing to do with them in it.
It's quite interesting that clean, because I have this concept that we work with our customers in this transformation around collect the data. So collect it, clean it, and connect it. So the connect is bringing the intelligence. How do we really start to connect things together? And when you were talking about that, do we worry about developing that in a silo, right? Because if you look at customer services, okay, they're going to have the data and information they have access to, but they may not be aware of financial information or bid information from a sales team. So that's data that we have that we could collect, clean, and connect. And are we seeing outside that? The thing that triggered me is when you asked the question, who's asking the question? Okay, if it's coming from someone, can I do this? I like that challenge.
Yeah.
Can I do this better? But is there someone else in our business or in any business going, is there a different way of doing this? And who's asking that question?
Yeah, I think that's now you're pushing that through. We're certainly pushing it through the management team. So we're starting to see, as I said, people are asking, can AI do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the magic. As soon as people start to see success in a siloed area, then you just got to plant the seed then.
Mm-hmm.
You do it really well. So you're already planting the vision with our clients. So that does allow us to take that intellect, that intelligence, that success, and then say, can I take that data? Can I combine it with that data? Can I do something derived information? Can I hypothesize?
Yeah.
And then how do I apply it? Mm-hmm. And then that'll eventually widen and widen and widen and widen across the whole business.
Yeah.
But get the individual wins effectively in each of the areas, and then you can go bigger. Because actually in doing that, you get clean data at each of those, those particular business areas, which is your magic. That's what you need to start to do. It's about cleaning that data. Exactly. Starting with clean data in each of those areas and then combining it as a data set.
Yeah. So there's two big topics when we talk to organizations about the foundations of AI being data. And one is single source of truth. Right, everyone goes, I always go into a strategy meeting, I say to them, I bet I know 2 out of your 3 strategies. They go, okay, single source of truth and self-service. Yeah. Right. Those are the 2 things that are being ambition for this place. Yeah. And I think that's when you said that, it leads really well into when we're connecting this data together, cleaning it and collecting it. It's why we're even doing it. Okay, and I think that leads us into the next bit about why we're even doing this, because you have a concept from your own role, but there could be other ambitions for the business. And I think it's important to understand why organizations even do this, why are we even considering it? And there are places, I'm sure there are plenty of places where I think that AI touches everybody's lives and might not.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to think, why are we doing it? And I look at the top few, people are looking at, it makes our work easier. That's clearly a business outcome. So we must see that in what we're doing.
Trying to make it more enjoyable, even if you're putting your employees first, giving them tools that are happening outside, so they are seeing them in their consumer lives. We've been influenced that for 20 years now. The advent of the internet, you used to have a hugely highly powered PC in work, and then you didn't have anything close at home. And then Bill Gates wanted to put a PC in every home. Well, congratulations, he did that, and then a little bit more. There's the Steve Jobs, let's put that device in your hand. Expectations have just accelerated, and I think exactly the same will. So as an organization, you've got to be able to facilitate those expectations. People have an expectation of being able to use them in a corporate setting, because if they use them in a private setting, so that's first and foremost. And then if you get benefit out of that from an organizational perspective, you serve your customers better intelligence, grow your organization, outstrip the competition by getting ahead of what they would do. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think that's that future-proofing thing. There's an agenda saying that. I don't quite know what it looks like, but I do need to consider it and move it forward. There's could be a pointless segue, this one, but when you were talking about the moving from PC, and the revolution to Steve Jobs putting that in your hand, I've read some articles recently about the power base of compute, because AI uses a phenomenal amount of compute power. And you were talking earlier about the NVIDIA, proposition. Now, there is a school of thinking which says, let's put all the power in the hand of the person, because I'm not always connected. Right? And I need to be able to drive AI from the phone. So let's have that device available to give it. There's another school of thinking, which is where we predominantly are with OpenAI, is let the heavy lifting be done in the cloud. And actually just interface that to the user. And I think that's an interesting dynamic for just generally across, where's that power play going to come out? Because, I was talking earlier really about, there is some physics involved here. We're gonna run out of something at some point. So, I'm as I said, it's a segue that may not be interesting, but I'm just listening to you talk. It's going, okay, there is a handheld device. Is that going to change? Are we going to be more connected, or are we going to go with cloud, or are we going to come back on premise again? I don't know where this is.
Well, I think we've got some great industry titans that are going to guide that. Probably. Tesla and self-driving cars will start to consider how you break that challenge, and then that probably is transferable technology, because they're going to need an awful lot of tech in that thing that's moving without a network connection.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not ubiquitous yet.
Yeah.
So there are brighter people than both of us, Peter, that are going to be
I'm sure. I'll rely on that.
working on.
Yeah, we'll just get on the back of it, see if we can make it work for us. But I think that's also true. You look at these big shifts that happen, and it's how you adapt to your business. So, how we look at customer experience, and this, we were going back to the why we're doing it, that is, and I talked much earlier about the journey. And if we conceive that, we are looking at the customer experience through the journey they come on with us, and I have this, what we're trying to do is make that a better experience ultimately. That could be a good use of AI, in my view. That helps us do more with less, give a better experience, and future-proof our business and take our way forward. So that I can see a lot of whys. I don't really struggle with the why. I don't think anybody's going, no, this isn't going to work.
Well, it's all about applying something that has been applied even elsewhere to what you do. Mm-hmm. So there's almost that lateral application of, I've seen success in another area and being able to rapidly adopt that into, making the lives of our customers. IT services are going to be, probably, they're directly interfacing with the customer. So it's a customer service model. So how do I make that better?
Yeah.
If I'm putting things that are slightly more like their consumer lives to consume that service, then that's going to be people's expectation. It becomes familiar.
Yeah, and it's not, I like that. We're not following actually. What you're doing is taking something that's proven and bring it into an environment where you can adapt and use it. And I think that I've always seen businesses have an ambition to be fast followers.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, there will always be people out there breaking new ground and doing some stuff, but actually in our organization, it's about that simplification, automation, all those ambitions that we see every day, but we can now use AI to try and accelerate some of that. So there's lots of good whys in there, right? It sort of turns me to the how. How are we going to do this? And that goes back to, we talked a lot about it really and going, let's find some use cases, let's do some things. But it's the challenges that I think organizations face. It is the how. How are we actually going to eat this elephant? How are we going to tackle it? And you must face that in our business.
Dedicated minds, all with a common goal. So you've got to set you've got to set a vision to say that we are going to change the way we deliver our services. We are going to use AI to do that. So you've got to set our vision. We know that we're going to need to do that to remain competitive, and then just start. You are going to need to put those people, you're going to create those champion groups that are going to start to share those ideas, get your engineers and work out the capability quickly. Because actually, people can be very long on ideas, but very limited on execution. So you need to find out what's possible with what you've got, the tools that you've got. Yeah. And if not, you need to invest in creating that capability pretty quickly, which is that's one of the reasons that we would exist as a business, where people have ideas and then can't go and execute, can't engineer. That's that's why Acora exists.
And I love that free spirit thinking. If our CISO Darren was here, what would he say? Around particularly the risk and governance aspects of this freedom to go and do all these things. Do you think he'd have a view on that, going, just slow down, guys? We're not quite ready for this.
I don't know whether he'd slow us down. I think he'd be looking for risk-based controls.
Right.
That's his big mantra. It's all about risk-based controls and then being pragmatic so that you're not really delaying things. I think it's all about innovation and progression. But so I think it would be around really closely assessing the risk. An awful lot of people would assess risk as a black and white. It's absolutely not, especially in here. You are looking to protect your crown jewels assets, and then, have a softer position maybe on other things, but knowing what your crown jewels assets are. It's a really important starting point, knowing where that data that you need to protect would be, knowing a process that might touch it.
Right.
Go and ask somebody if they've got every process mapped. Go and ask somebody if they've got every piece of data mapped, structured or unstructured, with potentially personally identifiable information in it. So to your point, cleaning up the data. So he would probably just say you need to be doing that at the same time. If it's not good, you need to accelerate that quickly.
Yeah, it's such a good point, because I think, again, we talk to a lot of organizations where data governance is sort of spearheading this because they don't want it to be a blocker, okay? But it's a key consideration. So where is the data? I speak to quite a lot of companies that don't even know where it is. Now, I'll go back to that example where there are tools, okay? Microsoft love their Purview, okay? There are tools to help you go and look at this. But actually, unless you understand the processes that you talked about, who has access to it, and the business that's supporting that, it's a very difficult start point to go, I'll buy a tool, that'll fix it. because it generally doesn't. Okay, there's no substitute for understanding where it's there, why people use it. So that governance lens. And we're finding, I find it more interesting conversations. So a couple of businesses that I've spoken to, we have our cybersecurity team talking to them about risk and compliance, and then it comes into data, and they go, "Ooh, you've got a data team," and that touches governance because we're trying to unlock that data. We're trying to connect it. We're trying to really get to it, but allow only the right people to have access to it at the right time. There's a big war for talent.
Yeah.
Okay, people that can have that vision. And, we all know that winning talent in the market is something vital to every business. It's on your top 5 in every company's strategy. But I think educating and keeping people aware and working with our talent in the business is going to be uppermost in preparing our teams for what's coming. We might not know, but I think it's just being a bit honest with that. Yeah. And it goes back to this journey. I don't think anybody's fixed all this yet. It's okay to be a little bit vulnerable and go, look, we're doing this, and here's how we do it, and be visible on it. There's this idea that somebody's in a lab inventing something amazing that's going to revolutionize the business is yesterday's model. It's now about constant iteration, involving people and engaging our team. So I see that's a really important part.
You need to get it in the hands of people. You need to democratize it. It isn't just something that lives in the lab. It's not just pure science. It needs to be practically applied. Good engineering, good tools, practical application, good data.
Yeah, and it comes back to our people. So, in finalizing some of my thoughts around this is, I at the moments where there's a point in time, there is so much opportunity, an incredible amount of opportunity. Yeah. I think that in order to move into that, we're having to work smaller, faster. Mm-hmm. Back to your point, really, my overarching thing around the adoption of AI, the use of data, the use of large language models, the privacy is do something. Yeah. Okay, and go. But do something aligned to that vision. And I think there is no shortage of opportunity, whether there's I find customers and people and partners I work with going, when do we do it? How do we do it? And I think just do it, okay? And it doesn't have to be big. In my view, again, whether you go back to our Copilot example, it doesn't have to be big. We just have to start. Yeah. And I think that's something that then helps create momentum and helps make change.
And how do you break down the wall or the potential wall between the engineering side of it and the analysis side of it, or the analyst side?
Yeah. It's something we see really increasingly is that, and we've had this always, okay, it's the ambition and the vision is delivered in a PowerPoint, okay? The actual work that gets done underneath it is the engineering side of it. And we can do a lot. And I liken this to spreadsheets. We can do most things with spreadsheets. No, we can't really. But I think there's many businesses will have expertise in spreadsheets, but once you come underneath the data, they quickly run out of space. There are many organizations I work with that they can't even load a spreadsheet because it's too big. Yeah. Okay, so what you've done is you've created an outcome based on what the business wanted without doing the underlying engineering work. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing around this AI space too, is we need to do the basics, okay, and get that engineering capability in place, which is not about building hardware, software, cloud architecture. It's about data architecture. It's about information architecture. It's doing that engineering work alongside our CISO and getting that engineering layer right. And that conflict helps us go, okay, we can now give the power to the analytics in the business. It goes back to my single source of truth, self-service. Okay, we can see that happening. Self-service can be through a large language model that's trusted and governed. Now, by the way, that's your job, the engineers, to make that happen. Okay, and I'm coming after you if it doesn't happen. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of that at the moment. So I think that opportunity is, whether that's just trying to climb over too many barriers, but my thing again is you can start small. The beauty with all of this, Lee, is you can do it. Yeah. You can do it. I can walk out of here and have a go, okay, myself. And I think that's the thing that's changed for me. We don't no longer have to go through a long strategic process of cost investment business case. What we do need to do is line behind a common vision. Yeah. And I'm looking at you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about trust? How important, we all know that we've been served to potentially, bad data. What are your customers telling you about that?
It actually, and I look at it from back to the engineering side, because this single source of truth, if you serve up a piece of AI or a piece of technology that allows a business insight and a human decision to be made on your behalf around AI, it can only make that decision based on the data you give it. And if you don't trust that data, you get this sort of That didn't work. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, it's sort of okay not to work and just start again. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think this idea that we have to spend 5 years building a common data platform to get to an answer that we didn't want in the first place is flawed. We should just do it. Okay. Just start quite small and go, okay, can I have a consolidated revenue across all my business divisions? Yeah. Okay. Not, can I consolidate my entire financial reporting back across all my business divisions? That's a big thing. Now, yes, we can do that one day, but why don't we start with one thing? Because if we get that right, that creates a foundation to do other things and we'll learn stuff. And this is about learning for me as well. So, you do a lot of learning on the way through this iteration.
Yeah. Tools, techniques.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I see a lot of that. And I'm sure that's opportunity for the business, but also opportunity for our people as well. I certainly see that. Any final thoughts?
I would say,
Apart from buy more shares in NVIDIA.
yeah, semiconductor.
No, maybe if I had foresight, I'd have done that 5 years ago. That would have been my...
I think so. I think that was probably, we probably missed a little trick.
Yeah, I did that.
Look, just get going. Try and find out more about it, but get going. Start thinking about how you can engineer it, and then start getting your clever minds that are already your key people in your business. You know where they are, to be able to go and work out the art of the possible. Start basic with your techniques, and then work out from there.
Couldn't agree more. Good chat.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Great to see you, Peter.
See you later.
Take care.